Secession, or the act of withdrawing from a political entity such as a country, is a controversial topic that has been raised by some groups in Texas. However, there are many reasons why seceding from the United States would be a foolish and damaging decision. Here are 10 reasons why. Economic consequences. The economic impact of secession would be disastrous for Texas. The state's economy is heavily integrated with the rest of the United States, and leaving the country would mean losing access to the U.S. market and many of its trading partners. This would result in significant job losses and reduced economic growth, and could even trigger a recession. International isolation. Seceding from the United States would also mean that Texas would be a new, small country without any international relationships. The state would be forced to establish new trade agreements, diplomatic ties, and alliances from scratch, which would take years to accomplish. Defense. The United States military provides protection for all of its states, and without this protection, Texas would need to establish its own military forces, which would be expensive and require significant resources. Texas would also be vulnerable to external threats without the support of the United States military. Loss of citizenship. If Texas were to secede, its citizens would lose their United States citizenship. This would have significant consequences, including the loss of access to federal programs, such as Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Political polarization. The political environment in the United States is highly polarized, and many Texans who support secession may not realize that creating a new country would not necessarily solve this problem. In fact, secession could make it worse, as Texas would likely become even more politically polarized than it already is. Legal challenges. Secession is not an easy process, and there are significant legal challenges that would need to be overcome. The United States Constitution does not provide a clear process for secession, and the Supreme Court has ruled in the past that it is not constitutional for a state to unilaterally secede. Infrastructure. The United States government provides significant funding for infrastructure projects in Texas, including highways, airports, and public transportation. Without this funding, Texas would need to find a way to fund these projects on its own, which would be difficult given the state's size and population. Education. The United States Department of Education provides significant funding for education in Texas. Without this funding, Texas would need to find a way to fund its education system, which would be difficult given the state's large population and diverse needs. Medical research. The National Institutes of Health, or NIH, provides significant funding for medical research in Texas. Without this funding, Texas would need to find a way to fund its own medical research programs, which would be difficult given the state's size and population. Cultural ties. Finally, seceding from the United States would mean severing cultural ties with the rest of the country. Texas has a rich history and cultural heritage that is closely tied to the rest of the United States. Separating from the United States would mean losing these ties and isolating Texas culturally. In conclusion, while some Texans may feel that secession is a viable solution to their political grievances, there are many reasons why it would be a foolish and damaging decision. The economic, political, and social consequences of secession would be severe, and it would take many years for Texas to rebuild the relationships and infrastructure it would lose by leaving the United States. As such, secession should be considered a last resort and only pursued after all other options have been exhausted.